Thank you, Jen. Before Joe Biden was president, he said that COVID travel restrictions on foreign countries were hysterical xenophobia and fear-mongering. So what changed?
Well, I would say first, to put it in full context, Peter, what the president was critical of was the way that the former president put out, I believe, a xenophobic tweet and how he called what he called the coronavirus and who he directed it at. The president has not been critical of travel restrictions. We have put those in place ourselves. We put them in place ourselves in the spring. But no, he does not believe. He believes we should follow the advice of health and medical experts. That's exactly what he did in putting in place these restrictions over the weekend.
Okay, we saw the president shopping indoors on Saturday behind glass that says face covering required, but his face was uncovered. Why?
The president is somebody who follows the recommendations and the advice of the CDC. I don't know what the circumstances were of that particular moment.
He was shopping in a store, and on the glass outside it said face covering required, and we could see him inside, and his face was uncovered.
Well, again, Peter, our recommendation and advice continues to be for people to wear masks when they are required in establishments. I don't know what this establishment was. The president obviously follows the advice of his health and medical team.
Is there concern that when the president says today, please wear your mask indoors in public settings around other people, and he doesn't do that, that it's going to make it harder to get people to follow him?
I think you see the American people, and all of you see the president wearing a mask every time he comes out to an event, when he's sitting in meetings, and certainly he will continue to model behavior he hopes the American people will follow, not for his benefit, but to save their own lives and the lives of their friends and neighbors.
From NPR and Marist said that nearly half of Republican men won't get the vaccine when it's available to them. And I know that last week you said that the Democratic administration might not always be the best messenger to communicate to everyone kind of the importance and the benefits of getting the vaccine. And so I just wanted to ask if the White House is making plans to try to boost Republican receptivity to the vaccine, and can you share what any of those ideas are?
Sure. First, the president's goal is to vaccinate all Americans, not just those who voted for him. Right now, the phase we're in is that demand for the vaccine still outstrips supply. We won't be in that phase forever, but right now the big issue is access and people wanting to have access to the vaccine. And so we're focusing on how to make it as convenient and accessible for Americans as possible. And I talked about this very briefly last week, but we know we need to meet everyone where they are, and that includes conservatives and ensure there are trusted messengers who lead the way in those engagements. 81% of Republicans said they would trust their own doctor or health care provider in some polling that came out this weekend to provide reliable information about a COVID-19 vaccine. This is consistent with what I was conveying last week and some of the data that we've seen internally about how, yes, there are a number of prominent officials out there who, if they were more vocal about getting the vaccine, we'd certainly support that. But also doctors and local health providers we see poll after poll, are one of the most trusted authorities in communities, regardless of people's political affiliation, as are religious leaders and local leaders as well. So we are very mindful of that and thinking of ways to support, empower, help fund those efforts. We're also meeting regularly with conservative groups, faith leaders, and rural stakeholders to partner with them in boosting vaccine confidence. But I also have a couple of examples that I found interesting. Hopefully you do as well. We are focused on earned media and establishing partnerships with trusted messengers right now. We will quickly move to a big public campaign, which will be run out of HHS. There's even some funding in the American Rescue Plan for that will be a part of it that hopefully we'll have more to say on in a couple of weeks. But a couple of examples. Tomorrow, Dr. Fauci and Dr. Collins will be hosting an event with evangelical leaders to discuss the vaccine and how we can partner with them. Dr. Collins has appeared on the 700 Club. We also have done, of course, a range of engagements with different communities where there's vaccine hesitancy. Dr. Nunez-Smith on the Shade Room. Dr. Fauci did an interview with Gloria Estefan, which now I want to go find and watch myself, as I'm sure many of you do. So we are trying to be creative on earned media to meet people where they are, but we're also mindful of empowering, supporting local trusted voices, because we've seen that in poll after poll to be an effective way of reaching a range of communities.
Dr. Fauci said recently that former President Trump getting involved in this would be a game changer for encouraging Republicans to take the vaccine. Do you guys agree? And does President Biden want to see Trump get involved in this messaging?
Well, if former President Trump woke up tomorrow and wanted to be more vocal about the safety and efficacy of the campaign of the vaccine, certainly we'd support that. But also, I think what's important to note is that, as I noted, 81% of Republicans said they would trust their own doctor or healthcare provider, and that's an important place to invest. Every other living former president, or most of them, if not all of them, has participated in public campaigns. They did not need an engraved invitation to do so. So he may decide he should do that. If so, great. But there are a lot of different ways to engage, to reach out, to ensure that people of a range of political support and backing know the vaccine is safe and effective. Go ahead, Numish.
Last one, a lot of talk about the first Trump-Biden debate today, but at the second one, in 2020, when roughly 220,000 Americans had already died of COVID, Joe Biden said about Trump, anyone who is responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America. Is that still the standard now that more Americans have died under President Biden than President Trump?
Well, I think the fundamental question here is, what are you doing to save lives and protect people? And the former president was suggesting people inject bleach. He apparently, reportedly, didn't even share with people he was going to interact with that he had tested positive for COVID himself. He continued to provide a forum for misinformation, which probably led to people not taking steps forward to protect themselves, to wear masks, to eventually get vaccinated. This president has made the vaccine widely available. He's relied on the advice of his health and medical experts, and he is trying to be a part of solving this crisis, getting the pandemic under control. And I think there's a pretty stark difference between their approaches. Go ahead.
Jen, some Democrats have been pushing the president.
Trump over the weekend speaking at CPAC.
I heard that.
He had a quote. He said, President Joe Biden sold out America's children to the teachers union. How does the White House respond to that?
I think we're going to spend more of our time focused on communicating about our agenda for the American people than responding to criticism from the former president.
Thank you, Jen, very much. So yesterday, former President Trump suggested he might run again he will be back in 2024. You said the White House is not paying attention to President Trump, former President Trump, but how do you think foreign leaders are looking at this? Because this is one of the reasons foreign allies are still have doubts, and many if they can trust the U.S. again. So how do you also think President Biden can convince global allies that they can trust the United States and reclaim U.S. leadership?
Well, President Biden just decisively beat Donald Trump a few months ago. That's why we're all here, having so much fun together in here. But his focus, and I think one of the ways that he convinces foreign allies and partners that America is back and we want a seat at the table, is by keeping his focus on his commitments he made on the campaign trail, which is building the economy back better, bringing an end to the pandemic, rebuilding our relationships around the world, and not focusing time and energy and effort on a political campaign. There's plenty of time for that, but his focus is on his objectives of getting the pandemic under control, working with our partners around the world to do that as well.
Do you think, taking into consideration that foreign allies are worried about the return of Donald Trump?
I'm not a spokesperson for our foreign partners, so you'd have to ask them and see what they have to say.
Yeah, Donald Trump last night said everybody should get their COVID-19 shot. Is that something you would welcome, his intervention? And given that Republicans as a group seem rather more reluctant to get the coronavirus vaccination, is there more you could be doing with Republican leaders to bring on that group?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, our objective, of course, is to ensure as many Americans as possible are vaccinated as quickly as possible. And we will have enough vaccines to vaccinate, ensure every American has a vaccine by the end of July, if not sooner, likely sooner. So at a certain point we're going to reach, we will have more vaccines than there are people who want to take them. That doesn't seem like where we're going to be at this point, but we will reach that point in time. And we certainly welcome the encouragement from anyone to take a vaccine.
And if I could, Anne Sakalis is still wanted in the UK.
Reaction to former President Trump this weekend at a rally in Alabama, asking his supporters to get vaccinated and then getting booed.
Well, one, we will take anyone who has a big platform out there who wants to encourage people to get vaccinated, doing it. That's a good thing, and we understand that some of the people who are not yet vaccinated are not people who may have Biden-Harris stickers on their cars, and that's okay. In terms of, I think it's just a recognition, as we are very clear-eyed about, that there are still people who are skeptical out there in the country, that there are still people who whether because of misinformation or a range of factors, are not yet getting vaccinated, even though it could save their lives. It means we still have more work to do, and we are committed to doing exactly that. Go ahead.
Jen, thank